Can we talk for a little bit about hostility?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So this is a weird coincidence, or maybe it's not so weird. Maybe it's just an algorithm thing. But I had one of the last videos I watched of yours, just prior to us hopping on. You had talked about this idea of rolling coal onto
hmm
bicyclists, and what popped into my Twitter feed literally as I was setting up for today's discussion.
Yeah, the incident in Houston, right?
Yep, teen who ran over six cyclists is walking free. So I guess he tried to just trying to put this together in my head. He tried to roll coal on them. The operative word is trying, so maybe he didn't succeed, and then I guess he ran him over.
Well, in order
It
to
is
do
a
the roll
Twitter
call,
thread, so
you have to hit the accelerator. And from my understanding, he hit the accelerator to roll coal and ended up losing control of the vehicle and running over six people on bicycles.
yeah,
Um, I mean that story. Yeah, I've tweeted it as soon as I saw it because it was shocking and yet totally not shocking at all. Um, that one story rolls in so many of the problems um, with car dependency. Um, I mean, the fact that a 16-year-old is driving a truck that size is one issue, but the fact that there's that hostility towards cyclists. And I made that video, and I'm not sure if you've seen it, called "I Am Not a Cyclist." This is one of the things I really appreciate about the Netherlands. Like, I'm not a particularly big fan of bikes. I don't really care about bikes. Like, lots of people do. That's fine. That's not me. But it is really nice to be able to ride a bicycle. Like, you just feel better when you've been riding around. There it's exercise. It feels nice. It's enjoyable. It's so much better than sitting in traffic. It's a really nice thing to do. But you can't do that because you're in this hostile car-centric environment in North America. And there's this hostility that comes from having to drive everywhere because
yeah,
you stop looking at the people around you as, your fellow neighbors and citizens, and they become just another asshole on the road in front of you. This is where road rage comes from. I mean, driving in traffic sucks. Even if you like cars, you have to admit that driving in traffic sucks. And a big part of that problem is that everybody has to do it. Like, you have no choice if you live somewhere car dependent. It doesn't matter if you don't want to drive or don't need to drive for the trip you're taking. You got to drive. You're going to be driving, whether you like it or not. And I think that's one of the things I appreciate, especially when I do drive in the Netherlands, is that the only people who are driving are those who want or need to drive. Um, when you take everybody and force everybody into a car and force them all to compete over the same road space, I mean, you will run out of road. It is impossible to build enough road to satisfy the mobility needs of everybody in a city. And that's why traffic is inevitable. Even in small towns in the US, you'll get these traffic jams on these 4 and 6 lane roads, which is insane because, my city of London, Ontario has this one 4 lane strode, as Strong Towns calls them, 5 lane actually, because there's a center turning lane. And it gets busy at rush hour, and now they're talking about expanding it to 6 lanes. I mean, there basically are no 6 lane roads in Amsterdam, and we have like more than 4 times the population of London, Ontario. Simply because everybody has to drive, and you end up clogging up the roads, and it's a frustrating experience, and people get angry. And then when it comes to wanting to carve out something for pedestrians or cyclists, it inevitably has to come at the expense of cars, because literally every scrap of space in the city has been given to cars. Apart from maybe a small strip of sidewalk if you have one, every last bit of it, every last bit of the area between buildings has been given to cars. So you can't build anything without taking space away from it. And that breeds this hostility, which is what breeds this hatred of cyclists. You look at this, you've got this person on this bike and they're just in your way, and you're trying to get to where you're going. You've been driving through frustrating traffic the whole day. You've been dealing with all this frustration and anger that comes from having to drive in a congested city, and then you come across these people on bikes and that breeds that hostility. It's it's just a vicious circle that happens in car dependency, and again, that's where some of this comes from. And then you get carving out a small slice of the road. Cyclists will be given a tiny little strip of paint in the gutter, what I call painted bicycle gutters, because I think bike lane is a ridiculous term. This is a gutter that you're literally telling these people to cycle in this painted line in the gutter. It provides them no protection at all.
Yeah. I always comment that they're basically just delivery spaces that you get to use if nobody's making a delivery.
Yeah, basically, right? Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, this space inevitably has to be taken away from drivers, but it's so insufficient. It's so unsafe that the majority of people won't use it. So the only people that you'll see riding bicycles in most places in North America are going to be the 20, 30 something, usually men, who are sporty. And then it also breeds this kind of resentment of like, why are we taking this space away just for these guys, these cyclists? And it also builds that, the people these cyclists aren't your friends and family. They're these other people, these cyclists, because your friends and family, they can't cycle. It's too unsafe. There's no way that, that your mother is going to get on a bicycle in New York City or almost anywhere. And again, that also creates this other group that can breed resentment. And all of these things work together to just make an environment that's just so hostile to cycling. And I think it's really sad, because the majority of people in America can't even see themselves as someone who would ride a bike. Like, most people know how to ride a bike. There may even be people who will drive somewhere to ride recreationally, but they just can't see themselves using a bicycle for their day-to-day tasks, because it just seems like such a foreign concept to them. And it seems so incredibly dangerous. Certainly if you're out on those suburban stroads, it is factually dangerous. And I think it's really robbing people of a healthy and efficient and low-cost way of getting around.